I have so much that I want to share with you. But first, let me introduce myself. Hi, beautiful people. My name is Carrie, and I want to be your reader. My hope is that I can bring you some sort of an insight into maybe a situation going on in your life or something that could help you grow as a person, right? So, starting off today, I had pulled out of the Fairies Oracle, He of the Fiery Sword. Now, when I'm looking at He of the Fiery Sword, there's a couple things I notice. The first thing I want to point out is that if you look at the different points along the sword, you might find that this is kind of reminiscent of the chakra system. And if you're familiar with the chakra system, you know, the different points of energy along the body, along the spine, that connect to different aspects of ourselves, right? We have, you know, the more base kinds of energies that are related to survival and progressively moving up into what people would equate as the more spiritual kinds of realms of life. Now, so taking a look at this, you know, since it is still He of the Fiery Sword, if we look at this kind of a sword symbol, and we're taking this as kind of like a fiery type of energy, what I'm getting the kind of idea here is that it's like, if you look at it, say, like in a traditional tarot deck, like the Rider-Waite, if you look at like your Ace of Swords, it is kind of this, a very focused, kind of sharp, decisive type of an energy, right? So, like, imagine if you have, like, your energy, you know, starting at the base, and you have, like, you're kind of in survival mode, and, you know, it's like, I need to make sure I'm safe, then you move up to where, you know, like, yes, I'm safe, but now this is how I connect to people, power, so on and so forth. So if we're looking at this, I'm kind of thinking in terms of like an insight that allows you to work a little bit better with like your boundaries, a little bit better with how you handle situations and circumstances in your life, right? So that, you know, this fiery sword, this clarity as you continue to grow through the different stages, allowing you to come into a better sense of power for yourself, more as an individual, more as a sovereign type of an individual, right? Now, there is a little bit something though that I want to kind of point out here. So might be a little hard to see. I see a shape here that would look like shoulders and a head. Now, to me, this appears to be the image of an individual facing away from the sword. So, like, you know, here's the sword, and like they're behind it, going away. So this is kind of like an internal focus, right? So the thing here is like it comes to a matter of like you trying to understand yourself better, and you know, when you come to this stronger understanding of who I am and what is acceptable for me and what is not acceptable for me. I feel like that kind of plays into the energies we're looking at here, right? The trick, however, is not to become too sharp, right? You know, like you have this sort of knowledge and sort of wisdom, but like wielding it appropriately, right? Okay, so taking from that, I'm going to pull some tarot cards from my Robin Wood deck. That is a kind of a more artistic representation of the classic Rider-Waite deck. Let's see what we get here. All right, so I pulled the World. Got to cover a little bit there because YouTube's a little bit sensitive about nudity. All right, so if we're looking at the World here, it's a matter of completion, right? Completion of a cycle. Like you have gone around the world, you've been through all the lessons, you've learned the things, you've done the stuff, right? So in terms of, you know, I was talking about this kind of ascension of energy, knowing yourself, boundaries, so on and so forth. So if you're coming to the World, what we're talking about here is you probably have come to understand something in a deep and intense and strong enough level in yourself that like you could say, okay, this lesson is done. I don't have to learn it again because I've really figured it out, right? All right, next card. The Devil. Okay. So, the Devil. This card, actually, in this case, is kind of making me think about how it's a lack of boundaries, right? So, whether that could be boundaries within yourself or boundaries with another. Let's say, for example, like within yourself, you have maybe somebody who has an addictive personality who maybe, like, hey, um, I feel like I need a substance to help regulate my emotions, or I feel like I'm not complete, in some kind of way. Then you could have like an external kind of version of this to where you might, like, um, maybe rely on another person to help you feel whole, help you feel complete. But if you're looking at this particular version, and we're looking at this treasure chest, right? It is connected to all of these chains. It doesn't matter how much these two individuals here are struggling. You cannot, you can't take this temptation, these types of things that you're looking for to make you feel abundant and rich and whole, out, out into the light, out into the world, in the sense of, like, say, like, if you smoke a lot because it kind of helps numb emotions and those types of things, like, yeah, you might be not feeling as stressed, but that same energy, that same kind of thing could take away from your motivation, could take away from your focus, your ability to really get out there and to live life, right? Or to understand yourself enough to where you can get out of this negative emotion, this darkness that you're in, so that you can go out and be more free. Okay, so what we're looking at here then so far is an ascension from this kind of trapped dependency on something or someone else into an understanding of who you are as an individual that makes it where you can, say to yourself that, hey, I don't need to rely on this crutch anymore, right? And because you don't need to rely on this crutch, let's see where this could take you. Alright, so we've got the Seven of Wands, which actually tells me that we need to dig a little bit deeper into this, right? There's this kind of defensiveness. Actually, no, I'm getting a sense of boundaries here from the Seven of Wands. You might get this sense of conflict, maybe in some interpretations, you get the kind of sense of, like, good fences make good neighbors, right? So in this case, this could be a matter of, like, now you've established personal boundaries, right? You've come into this kind of power in yourself. You could stand your own ground, and the various things in life, these other wands, don't really have as much control or power to affect you as they used to, because now you have the capacity to deal with it, right? Okay. So now, next thing we're coming up to is the Hierophant. Now, the Hierophant has kind of always been a little bit of a tricky card for me. So, if we're looking at the Hierophant, it is one way of looking at it is kind of that ascension path, right? So, looking back at that He of the Fire Sword, the moving from point to point as we're growing this path of ascension, right? So the Hierophant here seems to be an individual who has, mastered themselves, mastered some sort of way of knowing themselves as their relationship to the divine, whether that you see that as external or, whether you see that as yourself. And you have these two young boys who are seeking his approval, seeking his wisdom. This is a very kind of a structured way. So you might come from, like, a more traditional kind of a spiritual background, one that has, very ritualistic ways of kinds of doing things, ritualistic ways of, looking at things. And so it's a matter of, do these rituals and these particular stories and perspectives of the tradition that you come from, do they serve you? Do they provide you with an insight that is beneficial to you, that's helpful for your life, right? And then I'm feeling like in this case, it actually may be such, because, if we're looking at this ability to come out of some kind of a dependence into healthier boundaries, maybe you find something relatable. Maybe there's a story in, a particular holy text that kind of like gives you perspective on like how somebody else may have handled a situation, or how you can handle a situation, right? And then we have the star. Okay, the star, that is your wishes come true. She pours water both onto the land and into the stream. So kind of in the sense of like the higher reality, divinity, blesses everyone, right? Like, you come to this point to where you realize that, like, regardless of whatever path you took in life, regardless of whatever the positives and the negatives were, the ultimate end of it comes to, like, you get your wish. Maybe not the wish you were thinking initially, right? You could have thought like, oh, hey, I want this really nice car, so on and so forth. But then, like, when you came to this better understanding within yourself, like, what was the emotion I was trying to fulfill with wanting like this better car? Well, when you came to that understanding and you were able to, kind of cultivate that feeling within yourself, that satisfaction that you were trying to fill with whatever external thing, then there would be, when you find that within yourself, then something in your outside life would reflect that. Maybe it's not the car you wanted, but maybe it is something, maybe it is another vehicle, for example, just as like, possibility that, you didn't know how cool this car was, but it turns out it actually really is, and now you got a thing, right? And it met what you wanted, but not in the way you expected, right? So, we went with that. What else we got? Ooh. I'm thinking, when it comes to that star in relationship to He of the Fiery Sword, since we're talking about this kind of ascension pattern, what I'm getting here is like, there's that safety, right? That sense of safety that comes with, say, like the root chakra. And, you want to feel safe, you want to feel secure, you want to feel your needs are met. Moving up, you want to have, secure connections, power within yourself, love, expression, higher spiritual experiences, so on and so forth. That one bright central star there, that kind of, that aha moment, right? Okay. Queen of Swords. Alright. Queen of Swords. A lot of people call her the, we'll say, Witch of the Tarot with a B. And, maybe that could be something that people would think on the surface. They would appear like, oh, maybe you're harsh. But the reality of the matter is, you've come to a point where you have this decisiveness, you have this ability to, say, hey, this is for me, this is not for me. You have the ability to cut through with clarity, right? So, I want to kind of leave this off here with just this kind of reminder that while, yes, you do have this new clarity, you have this this new boundary, this new self kind of empowerment, remember not to be cold about it, right? This isn't he of the icy sword, this is he of the fiery sword, right? Fire can, while it can burn, it can warm the home, it can cook your food, it can keep you safe. Wield it wisely, you know? Don't use your new decisive power in such a way that is harmful to others, but rather use it in a way that establishes a healthy kind of boundary, healthy clarity on things in your life, right? So we're going to go ahead and leave it there. If you liked this reading, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to know at what point of this reading, what spoke to you the most, what's relevant to you, and I'll see you next time.